the list of Armenian ladies in business goes on. And so we have another cool person this week. Her name's Sirena Abalian. And we're going to be talking about mindset, public speaking, and spirituality, maybe if we're lucky. So keep on watching. Welcome back, guys. I'm Alice, and you're watching on LeLifestyle. And this week we got Sirena Abalian with us, a mindset coach, public speaker, and so glad that we lost Sirena.
Hey.
Hi. We got our coffees, we got our teas. You guys should go grab yours. It's gonna be a very interesting conversation. Here at LeLifestyle, we talk about money, mindset, books. So if you like all those topics, click the like button and subscribe because we post videos every Wednesday. Alrighty, Sirena, I think like the first question everyone wants to know is, who are you?
That's a great question. I'm still figuring that out.
Well, like, tell us a bit more, like your background, where you're from.
Yeah. So, okay. So I am born and raised Boston gal, so East Coast. And my parents were immigrants out here. So I'm first generation born. Very proud to be. My mom is from Montreal. My dad is from Istanbul, Turkey, but we're all 100% Armenian as far as we know. I'm praying that that's actually true. But anyways, you never know, right?
You done the 23andMe?
No, I haven't. I keep telling my dad to do it, but like we're all kind of scared. Anyways, I don't know why. But yeah, so that's a background in a nutshell. But born and raised Boston gal. I had been acting professionally since I was 5 years old. Working, playing, all of the above. Lived in Chicago for a little stint when I went to an art school trying to figure out who the heck I was. And I didn't figure it out there. So then I came back home and then I ended up going all the way up to Toronto. And I lived in Toronto for about a year and a half, 2 years. And that's when everything started to really click. And I have, rolled into or stumbled into who I am today. And right now you are catching me live in Austin, Texas, because I just moved here last week. I moved here for the warmth, but this is a time that'll go down in history as the coldest Texas has ever seen in the last 70 years, I think. And the whole city is completely shut down. So snow and cold just seems to follow me no matter what I do to try and escape it. But I'm really grateful to be here. And, my story has a lot of, dips and dives, and it's just a roller coaster that is life, like all of us. But I feel very much so grounded in who I am today and the work that I do, as you mentioned, working in the mindset and wellness industry, as well as just being as much of a light and, I say like cheerleader or like energizer bunny to the people around me. So thank you for having me on your channel.
We're so happy you're here. You mentioned being like the cheerleader. I think you have a special quote in your Instagram bio that says you're the what is it, Tinkerbell?
If Gary V met Tinkerbell. Yeah.
That's so funny.
And that's like my coaching style. Like I'm just like no BS. Like I'm not gonna, sugarcoat anything, but at the same time, like I will bring in all of the zest, all of like the sass and the fun. And like, if we want to dip into the spirituality, like I'm going to sprinkle it on top of that.
That's awesome. So how did you decide to get into coaching?
That's a great question. So for me, ever since I was little, I knew that I loved being in a position of leadership, of community. Even as an actor, I was lucky enough or talented enough to be able to have roles that had those same qualities in them. I kind of held the whole show on my back and had to rally for the 2 hours that we were performing and tell a story. And I'm a Gemini in my sun sign. I'm a Gemini in my moon sign. So literally all I'm supposed to do is talk. So when I was kind of going through the ebbs and flows of like what am I supposed to do? Like, who am I in this life? And like, I still have those moments. I'm not gonna lie. When the confidence dips, sometimes we have those moments. But I was lucky enough to dig into and lean into all of the discomfort that and expansion that I was experiencing when I was going through my mental health journey a couple of years ago. And in that, I found this beautiful space that was these individuals who held containers to guide people, to direct people, to motivate people into the best version of themselves. Now, for me, I've been coached as an actor, right, from my directors for years since I was a kid. So being coached feels like really good to me and feels really natural. And people kind of knew me as, the one that they'd go to for advice, like relationship advice or just life advice or like just everything. And I started to kind of fall into this role of, you know what, I have all these credentials and what I've done. I've been a personal trainer for a couple of years and dabbled in all these different, yoga, spirituality, meditation teacher, like all these sorts of mini hats that I've worn. And through trial and error, a lot of error, I fell into this niche that is the mindset world, that is the coaching world. And for me, it fills my cup to no end. Like, I love being able to watch other humans that I love and that become my very dear and closest friends just step into the most authentic, the most high vibrational, the biggest and best versions of themselves that was always within them. They just they just needed like the snow to be dusted off the car for them to really see through. You know what I mean? Like we all do that in every moment of every day. I have coaches, all coaches have coaches. You know what I mean? Like we look for the people in our lives who can teach us and guide us and be mentors for that space. So I am eternally grateful that for whatever reason, the universe, God, whomever you believe, granted me this responsibility of having this role, and I don't take it lightly. And it's definitely taken me a lot of time to lean into that, and still actively I am leaning into it as like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, don't try and do anything else. Like, this feels really good. But yeah, now I get to just like talk on Zoom to really cool people and like change their lives and watch them have these like massive aha moments and just like party. You know what I mean? So I'm really blessed and super grateful to be in this industry. As big or small as some people see it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is an amazing story of how you got into this. But I didn't know you were an actor. What were you in?
Yep, I acted professionally in a lot of musical theater in Boston since I was a kid. So, I just spilled my tea. I've done shows. I mean, I honestly couldn't even sit here and list them all. They've been years. But if you Google my name, you will see the embarrassing photos as well as the reviews of all of the work that I've done. But it does
Right after this call.
yeah. But it definitely does showcase itself in the fact that this stage is like my second home. So being on stuff like this or having my own podcast or being on other people's podcasts, or when we finally get to be back in person, just really being able to storytell and engage people and make them feel something is like that really gets me fired up.
Yeah, it feels like home.
Yes, absolutely.
So was that an idea from your parents, or they just noticed that you love to kind of, no, I don't want to say you have the center stage, but that personality came through at a very young age?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was like always singing and dancing and watching like Annie on repeat and, putting on shows. Like my grandmother, yeah, like my grandmother, I have so many home videos of me, like just they'd be like, oh, like Sirena, like put on a show. Like anytime we went to like family gatherings, oh, Sirena, go and put on a show. But in saying that, my parents, m- allowed me to be very cultured in the sense that they brought us to shows. They brought us to like the Boston Opera House, and I saw all of like The King and I like off on the Broadway tour and all this sort of stuff from a young age. And I mean, I guess they just saw that glimmer in my eye. But apparently, allegedly, as the story goes, the theater that I've worked with the longest out in Boston is called Wheelock Family Theater. I've done over 10 performances with them, I think 11 or something like that. Um, and when I was, I think four or five, we went to go see Pippi Longstocking, and I pointed at the stage and I was like, I want to be on that stage. I want to do that, allegedly. And so my mom put me in like a little class, and then I auditioned, and then I've been working with them since 2003. And the cool thing is, just a little fun fact for anybody who wants to know, that first show that I saw was Pippi Longstocking at Wheelock. And 10 years later, in 2013, I played Pippi Longstocking in their revival of Pippi Longstocking on the exact same stage at the
Way.
exact same theater. Yeah.
Wow. Well, childhood dream check.
I know, seriously, it was wild. I think I ended up winning an award for that or something. Was it? I don't know. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a lot of fun, and I still feel like I need to give my inner child a lot of praise for all of the work that she did as a kid, because I think I've let it kind of go under the radar for myself even, and been hard on myself. And I'm like, dude, like you were working your butt off as a kid.
Yeah.
You can relax now, like you're allowed to.
So that kind of actually ties into my next question, where it's like, how did you come to talk more about your inner child and teach, I guess, coach other people to work on their inner child? I think that's your biggest calling when it comes to your coaching services.
Yeah, that's inner child healing is my jam. And as you know, everyone listening will find out, I'm very a Jill of all trades, very multi hyphenate, very multifaceted, and I've worn a lot of hats. And in that process, can kind of leave you a little bit confused as to what you're supposed to do in life, right? And so I've had anxiety and panic disorder since I was a little kid. My mother has had anxiety for years, whether it runs in the family or it's unresolved intergenerational trauma, which is a whole nother subject that you and I can talk about. Um, that's something that I've suffered with, turned it into a gift as much as possible. But when I was in my freshman year of college, the summer after my freshman year of college, everything kind of like went belly up. And I fell into a not so fun depression, and it really heightened all of the inner turmoil that I had been facing since I was a kid that I had kind of shoved under the rug, subconsciously, as we do. And bear with me for a moment when I tell you how this whole inner child thing came to me, because I was not searching for it. I was not reading books about it. I was not even in the spiritual world. I didn't even grow up very religious. You know, we went to church when we like needed to, but I didn't really understand anything. I was very naive to it. But for me, and I actually now enjoy telling the story, it was probably the darkest day, one of the darkest days that I had during my depression. I was at the aquarium in Boston, which is a beautiful aquarium. I highly recommend people go, with a family friend of ours who's visiting from France. And, we were showing him the aquarium and whatnot. And I just remembered having this like dark gray cloud over my head, and I couldn't shake it. And in that moment, it was like, 5-year-old version of Sirena like popped up in front of me, like in my ears, and just looked at me terrified and frustrated. Like she literally was just like, who are you? Like, your favorite animals are sea turtles and they're right in front of you. Like, why aren't we having fun right now? I'm so confused. And that was like the wildest wake up call to me, because I was able to see almost like outside of myself, like what was actually happening. And so that night, I remember I went back home and I like sat her down in front of me, and I was just like, where did I go wrong? Like how do I connect back to you? And I started simply by just like asking her questions. Like, I forget, like, what makes us feel safe? Like, what makes us laugh? What makes us smile? And it was reconnecting back to her and making her feel safe in coming back home to me that allowed me to bridge that gap, and find that alignment again. Because for me, when I think of something like depression, while it is clinical for certain individuals, a lot of the time depression comes up when we are out of alignment with our truth, and our highest self and what we truly desire, right? When either ego takes over completely or our circumstances take over completely and we're like kind of riding on autopilot, that's when we kind of veer off of our track, and it can lead into various sorts of mental illnesses and trauma and whatnot. Mastin Kipp does a really good job of talking about that if anyone wants to do some research. But that's how my inner child came to me. And ever since then, I've just like devoted my whole life to checking in with her, to learning more about her, to learning more about this process. And in doing so, as I spoke to more and more people and integrated it into my coaching, I just realized like, whoa, like there's magic in this like download that I had. And, my meditations come to me very intuitively, and I just they just like bubble out, and I do it, and I know it like totally rocks people's worlds. And it's like it's a cool tool that I found that works, and I know it can work for every single human being on this planet. And that's why I believe, in a world where our inner child is our greatest mentor. And if that we were to reconnect with them wholly and thank them and have them thank us, that we could then all sit at like, think of like the most important people sitting at the most important tables discussing the most important matters. If they were to have, tapped into and healed and loved their inner child, where their own decisions and choices and actions and beliefs and narratives would come from a totally different place than where a lot of them are coming from now. That's why I believe the power of it's like wild. And I still think it's wild that this is even something that just like came to me, because I saw something this morning that talked about this like very scientific reasoning as to how our subconscious is programmed. And I realized, I was like, I do that with my clients. I just didn't know it was called that. So I was like, okay, like something must be working. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's a really cool tool. And I know you got to experience it a little bit on the retreat that we did on Sunday, right?
Yeah. Actually, your story got me a little emotional, but not as emotional as that meditation. I was crying.
Really?
It was like the second time where I participated in a spiritual workshop, and I bawled. Like the first time, cried the whole workshop. This time, only cried during your meditation. I felt like I was doing good, and then that happened, and I was like, no.
No, it's good. It was releasing all that sort of stuff. How was your experience reconnecting with her?
So that kind of has something to do with the other question I was going to ask you. Do people have a hard time connecting with their inner child when they don't remember their childhood?
Yeah, they do. And what's interesting is what I found is they say they don't remember, but it's not true. What actually happens is, so let me put this down so I can use my hands to talk. Our subconscious mind is programmed between the ages of 0 and 7. It's like we always say, when kids are the most impressionable. And in those 7 years is what we take in, what we hear, creates and cements the foundation towards the narratives, beliefs, thoughts, patterns, actions, behaviors that we have in our conscious brain. So the way that you and I are acting right now is through our logical conscious brain. Like, I'm not just going to like rip my top off right now because I'm hot. You know what I mean? Like where we operate in logic now. But the way that we operate, the way that you and I are showing up today is based off of our conditioning as children. And so what happens, to answer your question, is a lot of times our mind and body likes to hide moments from our past that feel, in order to protect us, like certain triggers or certain traumatic experiences that have occurred, right, and haven't been healed, but have been like locked in a box, essentially. And so for a lot of people, they go, oh, I can't even remember my child. It's so long ago. It's so far away. And usually why is because there's some sort of resistance. There was like a padlock put at the gate to past 7 years old, which we do as a protection mechanism for ourselves, because we think that it's better off if we don't dive into that, because it's painful, because it makes us cry, because it makes us feel something. And so what then we get to do is we get to go just a little bit backwards to the most recent memory of something I'm trying to pull up. For example, this retreat was about self-love. So I wanted us to talk about, when did we feel we were giving love? How did it feel to receive love as a child? And if we can't remember that far back, and I had people DMing me afterwards saying, I could remember this, but I couldn't remember that. I'd say, then go really recently. What was it like really recently for you to receive love? Where is that memory? Right? And then we can start to peel the onion from there. I know for me, I'll give an example. I've had various sorts of trauma in regard to relationships or my own sexual energy. And I didn't know why. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, sex wasn't too taboo of a topic in my family. I don't remember anyone hurting me or making me feel, unsafe in any way. But, as a teenager and as a young adult, I was like, this keeps happening. I keep having panic attacks. Like, what is wrong? And I genuinely couldn't figure it out. So I went back and I was, okay, why did that experience bother me? What about it, triggered something? And I sat with it and I was like, you know what? I'm not totally sure. And it wasn't until I did alternative healing methods, so, weave into my coaching, I did a practice called breath work, which essentially puts you into like sort of a hyperventilation space where your body is just filled with like, so much oxygen, and CO2 is all just like moving around and about, that it actually lets your mind kind of take a trip to a degree, while also letting, the fascia in your body experience and unlock things that it was trying to hide. And it wasn't until I did this one specific breath work that I did, again, I had no intentions of unlocking this memory, but it actually did unlock a memory of me as a child, in more compromised positions that I wasn't excited about. And once I tapped into that, I was like, oh. And then I saw this other, home video that like reminded me of the person that was connected to this memory. And then I was like, oh, everything's coming back now. And then I could trickle it back into my present day where I go, okay, now I can dive into this deeper and heal this part of myself. But it's very normal for people to say, oh, I don't remember. My dad always goes, I don't remember anything. I don't remember my high school years. I don't remember my childhood. He remembers the good things, which is good, right? But then, my mom too, she's like, I don't remember. I had a great childhood. I was like, we all had great childhoods, right? And there's nothing, there's I don't want anyone to believe that they have to be more or less traumatized or abused in their childhood. Like, no, literally some random stranger on the street telling you to move over, because you bumped into them as a kid accidentally, could create a pattern belief that you take up too much space in this earth. Like, that's how freaking simple it is. You know what I mean? But our mind and body likes to protect ourselves and just goes, no, I don't want to remember these memories. They don't exist. Bye. That was a really long way of answering your question, but I hope that was valuable.
Yes, for sure. Like, my experience during the meditation was, I couldn't remember how I dressed. I just remember through photos.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had extremely curly short hair. And when you said, if you want to be naked, be naked. But I was like, but it's Valentine's Day. I don't want to be naked. But most of the time I do want to be naked. Even to this day, if I could just walk around in my underwear, I would. But for the rest of the meditation, when you said, find a moment during Valentine's where you felt like you were receiving love or giving, that was a point where I was like, I don't know.
Mm.
So when you said, think of another time during the times, besides Valentine's Day, I felt like the moment that I felt like I was giving or receiving was when my dad would come home from work. Me and my sister would be hiding. And then he'd be like, where are my daughters? Where are my daughters? And then we'd be like, boo. And then go run for a hug. That was like my favorite memory. Mm-hmm. But then comes, when I think of that, I also think of, okay, high school. You were saying like you would stay up and like write Valentine notes all the time. I never got one. And I always wanted to give, but I never got one. So I was like, what's the point? And I kind of like, it spiraled from there. But like, I remember up until 10, 11 years old. And then before that is extremely blurry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intense. But definitely something like I would go into, which kind of leads me to my next question is, how do you define the inner child? Is it your higher self as well, or are they two separate things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I tell people that you're allowed to kind of see it as two separate things if you want. In my mind, I like to see three versions of me. So there's present version of me, there's past version of me, which is my mini me, and then there's also highest self version of me, which is future me to a degree.
Yeah.
But both that past and that future are both operating from the most truest form of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like my higher self, like my future self and my past self can like work in cahoots with each other to like help nudge my present self sometimes. But when I think of our inner child, I like to think of it in a unique way of it's not this traumatized, abandoned kid in the corner that, you have to apologize to. Yeah, sure, there are times where we do get to apologize. We do get to heal the wounds of our inner child. But your child is that pure, butt naked, frolicking around in the field. That's you. That's like your truest essence. It's like your Jiminy Cricket. Like that's the best way I can think to describe it. It's, your North Star. Like that is your black and white. You're not logic. You're just like innate, almost like animalistic part of yourself was this kid. And the reason why they are also your highest self is because they operate from that very black and white, genuine, authentic, transparent version of you. They're not tainted by the world yet to a degree, right? So when we can tap into them, we can give them advice as much as they then give us advice. So
Mm.
what I mean by that is there are moments in my business where I tap into my future self because in my head, my business is building towards my future. But there are moments in relationships or friendships or even just like moments of fear or doubt or whatever that I tap into my mini me because that's what feels the best for me. And I can check in with her and go, do you feel safe in this moment? Or what do you think about this decision? And it feels closer to a lot of people, that inner child, than with that future higher self version does. But they all work in cahoots. I think they're the same thing. In my brain, they just look like two different things that I can tap into depending on what I need. Like my highest self has more wise phrases versus my inner child just gives me looks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I guess when you say they're the same person, well, it's because it's still you.
Exactly.
Ages.
Yeah. And we are our highest selves right now. It's just always a question of are we in alignment and then are we honoring that alignment essentially?
Hmm. Which kind of, it goes with you, the course that you brought out into this world called Get the F Aligned. We'll talk about that in a sec. But I also wanted to know, when you kind of got into this, okay, maybe other people would benefit from this coaching or whatever. Um, did you always have that entrepreneurial mindset, or it was mainly purely from the position of I want to help these people?
I'm lucky. My family is very entrepreneurial. I feel like all Armenians are entrepreneurial. Let's be real. You know what I
You're
mean?
not
Like,
the first one to say that here.
yeah, like we don't like working for other people. We like to do things our ways. We're a little bit of BS artists, not gonna lie, but we're good at that, right? Like that's what we grew up in the generation of like survival is like, for yourself and build for yourself. And I think a lot of us have that pride and ego of I'm putting my name on. I know I do, and I am totally fine with saying like I am okay with how big my Armenian ego is. Because I want my last name on there. If I marry an Odar, like I'm not taking his last name. Like, nope. Like it is me or bust. So yeah, I mean, we've always had that spirit from my grandparents to I'm positive even before them. Like my grandfather owned a gas station and now has a very successful like charcuterie business that he used to run out of his garage up in Montreal. And
Do we know him?
it's Vortik. He makes like pasta. I mean, it's like pretty much in like a bunch of retail. I'm positive you've seen it. It's whatever. So like he's very entrepreneurial. You know, my uncle has done his own stuff. My father has his own electrical company, and then he's a real estate broker. My mom's opened like 3 or 4 different companies. You know, like we sit at our kitchen table and we just plot and plan and invent. Like my dad and I were shoveling the other day when I was back home in Boston, and I mean, again, I think it's just that Armenian spirit. Granted, it's our personalities, but truly, I was like, I was like, these shovels, like, when was the last time somebody reinvented the shovel? Like, this is stupid. Like, it should work better. And so we're sitting there, like, trying to think of like a better way to like innovate this shovel. And we're making jokes like, oh, Dyson should make it, and like,
you guys don't have the snowblower?
We do, but we haven't redone our driveway. We just moved into this brand new home, so the driveway's all like rocks. So if we did that, it would ruin the thing. So it was fine. We were shoveling, but it was just so funny. Like, I think, like whomever before me has said it, I really do think it's in our blood to be entrepreneurial, because it's a strength of ours. Like, we are leaders, we are innovators, we're creative, we're tough, we're grit. Like, you got to have grit. You got to be crazy to do it. And I think every Armenian has all of those traits. So
yeah, 100%. So okay, like let's get into your courses. And you currently are offering a free course called Get the Fuck Aligned. I did it. It was like my first contact with you, and I was like, okay, this girl's special.
Thank you.
And it was also during the time where I did that first workshop I talked about earlier, the same weekend. So it was a whole weekend of just crying.
Love it. We love it.
Yeah, but good tears. So tell us a bit about that course and why you decided to launch it, and why free? Because I feel like people would definitely pay for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good. Well, I'll start with the why free thing is, the reason I do what I do was born out of the pain that I felt through my mental illness journey. And, therapists weren't as accessible to me as I wanted to. And certain self-development practices weren't as in my reach or as accessible. So yes, while I have, a more high ticket one-on-one container, because I respect my energy and value my time, and I know my clients do that as well, I wanted to create something that you could do in 3 days, that you could repeat as many times as you wanted, that was like just really value packed without it being rocket science. So literally in one day, because I'm very intuitive and it just kind of, as a manifesting generator, just like kind of generated out of me, I built this, aligned as fuck in 3 days. And it's super simple. I mean, you went through it. It's not rocket science. But I like to think of things to be as tangible as well as, feminine as possible. So we get to balance both. There's a habit tracker there. There's specific journaling prompts that I give you, things that are a bit more structured while also allowing all of this room for play. So to me, it was like, what a great and simple, value piece to have for my business, as well as, now you get to see a little bit of taste of what I do, because there's videos of me. And so as long as I can just keep making content that is valuable, to me, I'm like, this is simple stuff. But to other people, it's like, wow, I didn't know I was even allowed to think of life that way. Like, that's what I want people to experience. So I'm just excited to build more courses like that and continue to, expand my offerings. But literally with Aligned as Fuck in 3 days, you can spend 10 minutes, you could spend an hour on each section. I mean, the videos are only about 10 minutes each, and it's, one little activity every day. And I mean, you're a good testimonial, but I'd like to think that, I mean, I even run through those practices for myself sometimes on a monthly basis or a weekly basis of just, okay, things feel kind of funky. They feel out of alignment. How do I get back into this? Yeah. Oh, I know, I have this tool. Simple.
Personally, it just took about an hour. Just watch the video and do the exercise afterwards. All in all, an hour every single day, which is something very doable for every single person out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Congrats on that, because
Thank you.
it's like not very recently.
Yeah, it was only not even a month ago, I don't think.
Yeah, beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. I always wonder how people come to, you know, um, participating in courses like this or trying to work on their mindset. And I want to understand other people, because for me, it was a different story. It was an on and off, a very roller coaster ride with all the businesses I tried to do, and
Mhm.
the lack of emotional support, I want to say. So for me, it was very up and down. I've had many dark days, many high points. And for other people, it's like, oh, I hit rock bottom, and then from there it's good.
Mm.
I kind of like have a hard time believing. No. So what is a pain point in most people's lives where they're like, okay, I need to work on my inner child, or I should be looking into getting aligned?
I mean, I always base it off of my own story because that's the only place that I feel ethical to teach from. And for me, it was literally just feeling stuck, like just confused and stuck. Like, sure, maybe I really like my job, but I can't seem to keep a relationship. Or I hate my job, but I don't even know where to begin to do something else. The pain point for what I felt and when I really, like dove headfirst into this was I was just like exasperated. Like I was just on my knees, kind of begging, like, I need something to change. And you have to want to do that sort of work. Otherwise, it doesn't stick. Like you're saying, even with businesses, like you gotta be balls to the wall. You gotta be 200% in. Otherwise, it doesn't stick. And self development is that exact same thing. So I don't push people over the edge. They meet me at the edge and then I like help them build a bridge to the other side, or I just go free fall and here's the net. I'm not going to push you. You have to push yourself, but I promise that I'm helping you build this net at the bottom. So yeah, it's like for me, the biggest one is like feeling stuck. Some people who are a little bit in the spiritual space know that they wish to heal some unresolved childhood trauma. They know that that's already present and that that's something that's hindering them. Um, and while I am not a therapist and I'm not licensed in any sort of psychotherapy or whatnot, um, I know the unique practices that I have work for individuals who come with me with like, oh my goodness, this thing keeps showing up in my workplace, in my relationships, in my habits, in my routine. Like, you know what I mean? It bleeds into every part of our lives. But the number one thing that I see is people just going, I feel stuck. Like I'm done. I want something bigger. I want something better. I know that higher self is like whispering sweet nothings into me, but I don't know how to listen to it or what to do. So those are the biggest pain points, I would say.
Yeah. And another thing I noticed in a lot of people who go on a I guess, discovery or a personal growth journey eventually end up in the spiritual realm. They
Yeah.
come to this realization, okay, well, there's something more, and there's something I could actually tap into. And a lot of people who start their personal growth journey tell themselves they don't want to end up there. They're going to end up there. Which
Yeah.
is very fun, because it could be different um, mindset for every single person once they're in that position. So for us, let's say Christianity is something very important to us, but we have a different approach when it comes to either church or reading the Bible and whatnot. And sometimes we kind of figure out a way that works for ourselves. And for some other people, it's like, what are you doing? You can't just like interpret the Bible however you want.
Right. But what I learned through all of that, because even like I was saying, for me, like I didn't have any sort of relationship with anything outside of myself. And in order for a human, I believe, in order for a human to truly step into their highest power is to also have that surrender and faith to something greater than themselves, because there is only so much that we can control. And so whatever you want to call it or dress it up as or read it as, I don't care. I just do believe that it is important for us to have a grasp of something. And even, even to your point of, you know I'm proud to be Armenian. I'm proud to be, in the churches that we are. And each pastor or priest, I'm kind of messing it up, they interpret it in their own way. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to read it and you're going to say, oh, the curtain was blue because the curtain, was representing this, but then the other person is saying the curtain is blue because, you know what I mean? Like, we all know that, like, it's the same thing. Like, so for me, even for me, I'm not someone who is very religious in the sense of, I own a Bible and I go through it and I read it. But when I was going through a very dark period of life, I did turn to practices like that. And I just kind of replaced the words that resonated with me the most. And nobody else needs to know that. If you're not going to be accepted and supported in doing that, then you don't have to tell other people. Allow yourself to experience it as you want. Like, I used to listen to this one pastor's sermons who he puts on a podcast, and he was a massive influence on my life when I was
Joel Osteen?
No, it was Stephen Furtick of Elevation Worship.
Ooh.
Yeah, he feels like a really cool uncle, and he made it very he made religion and spirituality and the stories very palatable for somebody like me who's very new and very apprehensive to all of it. But in the same way that someone can wake up anxious and open their Bible, close their eyes, open their Bible, and put a finger down to whatever message they believe God is sending them, and people might come for me for this, but I believe is the same thing as me, opening one of my card decks and just simply asking for some sort of guidance. And it's like, a dolphin pops out and a dolphin represents this. Like, to me, it serves the same purpose. And so who am I to tell anybody on how to do something, which I think is cool and unique, especially in this mindset spiritual space, because some clients come to me and want to tap into the woo woo, and I'll pull out my cards and we'll do Reiki and very Eastern sort of stuff. And then, my most recent client was Jewish. We talked about culture and history and intergenerational trauma, but we didn't need to tap into, religion if that wasn't something that we wanted to talk about. And I think knowing that, especially in the world that we live in today, like, we can all be friends. Like, we can all have that basis of acceptance and showing up, and the fact that I want to help you and I want to serve you in the way that resonates the best for you. As long as you're not going to come at me for doing what I do, I'm not going to come at you for doing what you do. And if we could all kind of adopt that, we'd all probably be a little bit better off, right?
Wow. Yeah. Amazingly said. Well done. Bravo. Actually, a thought that I had during the self-love retreat was, I wish I had learned how to meditate, how to tap into all this when I was younger.
Yeah.
Do you also believe that this is a practice that parents should be teaching their kids? And what is a great way for them to start this practice?
I'm so happy you asked me this. Yes, it is my life's mission, my, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 year pipeline dream to implement mindfulness into the education program, because I've seen it in, the kids I used to nanny when I lived in Toronto were beginning to kind of have little, they'd come up to me and they'd sip their metaphorical hot chocolate. And that was their breathing technique to calm down. And I was like, yes, this is magic. But just like you're saying, it's the way that we move the needle, in my opinion, is my job right now is to educate my generation, millennials, in how to resolve their inner child, to resolve their trauma, to then be able to lead our future generations in a way that is more compassionate and more empathetic and more mindful and more understanding. And I've seen it happen firsthand with some of my clients who are teachers, which I'm seriously just blows my mind. I'm so grateful for that. But I always say, before we can teach anything to anybody else, same thing with the oxygen mask. Before we can, put the oxygen mask on anybody else, we have to put it on ourselves first. The same way that you can't go and teach somebody soccer if you've never played it yourself, right? Like, it's such a silly example, but it's the same thing. I can only teach in my scope of the amount of healing that I've done. a business coach can only teach you how to reach $1 million if they've also reached $1 million. And that's something that I really want to throw out there as a really random sidebar of knowing that in everything that we do, right? Like whether we're buying a product or investing in a coach or being a parent, like you can only show up for your kids as much as you show up for yourself. And they know that. Like they are smart, intuitive little MFers, and they know that. So for me, it's if you have kids or you want to have kids one day, or you're young and flirty like us and not even thinking about it, can you do your future self, your future kids, your future generation, the blessing and the honor of going into you, healing your mother wounds, your womb wounds, healing intergenerational trauma, healing your own trauma, so that then you close that, you put a nice little bow on that. And when you finally do have the beautiful opportunity of perhaps bringing more children into this world, or nurturing children or other humans in whatever capacity that is, that you don't carry that extra baggage, that you've sealed the deal on that we've closed that chapter for our ancestors, and that then we get to move on. And our kids and the kids that we take care of or even meet on the street, we don't, I don't know if taint is the right word, but like we don't like cast or project any of our own baggage onto them and allow them to like bubble and bloom and blossom. So yeah.
Wow. Yes. So hint to everyone, go get a woo coach. And we've been like mentioning some terms here that probably you have never heard of, like manifesting generator, which is part of your human design. Other terms thrown out here. If you have any questions regarding this, you can always reach out to Sirena. You can always reach out to me. I'm not the 100% expert, but I've learned so much throughout this whole past year, because that's when I did the most digging into that stuff. So we could both answer your questions if something's not clear. So to kind of like wrap up the section on the inner child and mindset version, before I kind of ask you questions about you and your days, what kind of work can people do on their inner child at home right now? Like one or two things. Of course, your course is one of them. And at what point have you recognized that people have to reach out to you to continue their healing?
So the inner child, yes, that course is an easy way of tapping into it. While not explicitly about the inner child, it does do that. The second thing is just like what I led you guys through on the retreat on Sunday. That's where I always start, is either find a picture of your mini you and like make sure you have it nearby at all times, whether it's your phone background, your laptop background. I want you to just begin to remember the smile, the outfit, whatever it was that they would wear, and really begin to just externalize that and see it as a part of your life and something you're not afraid of looking back on, something that you don't feel, resentful looking back on or regretful, because the more that we can look at that version of ourselves with joy and neutrality at the same time, that's when we dive in to do the work, that's when the work is easier to a degree, when we've already established a relationship. So finding a picture, going back and watching home videos, and really trying to tap into yourself at that age, and being able to kind of have it as your little sidekick in moments, and just seeing if it appears consciously or not, is really, really step one, because we can't dive into any deeper than that. It's not fair if we don't even know who they are, what they look like. So that's what I would say, the first two things. In regard to diving in deep, for me, I always say it has to be a hell yes for you, and it has to be a hell yes for me. It has to be in total alignment for us to work together. Again, it is like a high ticket thing, and it's a lot of fun. And I mean, I just wrapped up with a client last week, and like we cry on our last calls. Like I wanted to push the call out another week just because I didn't want it to end, because you just truly do have like great connections with people. But I always say, if anything right now is nudging you or even slightly pinging you, or your heart rate is increasing a little bit or something, just reach out. That's what I just, because the more that we teach ourselves to follow that gut instinct, those intuition instincts, that's when it leads us to like so much more abundance on the other side. But if any of this resonates and you want to dive any amounts deeper into it, I would love to help facilitate that in any way, shape, or form that I can. And know that because it can seem like really intense and emotional work, it's also the most joyful and easy and fun work that you could ever do. So it has both sides of the coin. And I'm just really grateful that people trust me enough to let me guide them through it all.
It's also nice to know that there's someone there with you, guiding you when you're going through these really hard emotional, like, I guess, flashbacks.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the most important part is I don't like to really send people out on their own to do it, only because it can kind of trigger you down a rabbit hole that if I'm asking you to soothe this other thing, like you need someone to kind of support you in your back and to also soothe you and then to help integrate it all. That's
Mm,
the hardest part is like
yeah.
with our own meditation. I didn't want to go too deep into that on the Sunday the other day because it was only 15 minutes. And I was like, you know what? Like, I can't spiral them down this crazy path if I can't hold them at the end of it. So
Yeah.
it is. That's the favorite part of my job is to be that literally like safe space and then cheerleader all at the same time.
Awesome. I love it. So tell us a bit about your everyday. What's your routine like as an entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah. Lately, now that I've moved into my new home and my new abode, it's I'm an early bird, as Alice knows. I'm a grandma. I go to bed late. I mean, I go to bed early and I wake up early. But I like to just have a very feminine morning routine, and that's taken me many years to let myself do. And what that means is, if I wake up in the morning and I want to sleep in an extra 10 minutes, I let myself. If I wake up in the morning and I want to journal and have some tea, cool. If I want to meditate, cool. If I make my bed, cool. If I don't, also cool. If I do a little bit of yoga in my room, beautiful. I really just let myself find joy and peace in that morning hour, because that sets up the rest of my day. And it just makes me feel like very high vibe. So whatever that morning routine looks like, feminine energy. And then usually it depends. Usually I'll go straight into a workout. Um, and then my whole day starts, like maybe go out for, I mean, obviously there's not snow. I like working from coffee shops, or I work for my friend's house a lot. And then it's pretty much just like laptop work all day. I try and be better about like going out and getting some steps in and whatnot. Sometimes I'm not, if I'm just like really in the mood. But yeah, it's a lot of laptop work. It's fun when I get to have like my content creation days, because I can just like put on a fun outfit and be in front of the camera. Like today is like my content day, so I'm with you for the beginning of it. But yeah, it's pretty, like, people think, oh, it's so cool to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, yeah, it's just more of what you do to your 9 to 5. You're just doing it for you. So pretty much just at my laptop all day until whenever I feel like it's time for dinner. And then even after that, sometimes I'll still sneak in some work. But it's about finding that balance for you and what works the best. But I'm grateful I get to have this. I still am a personal trainer for a little bit on the side, so sometimes I have clients at like 5:30 in the morning, so that'll kind of throw off my routine a little bit. But I love teaching, I love coaching that as well. So it's fun. It's never the same schedule. It's something that I've learned, that it's okay not to have routine, like you were saying. Like, a lot of people be like, wake up at this time. It's like drill sergeant, sort of like, this is what my entrepreneurial day looks like. And I'm going to kind of call their bluff on that. I've never met an entrepreneur who works like that. Because when you are an entrepreneur, you just have to have room for the things that just come up, and having grace for that. And the more that, as women, if we can operate in our feminine, we operate in alignment, we don't burn out as quickly, or if at all, in this very masculine world. And so honoring that for myself and realizing like, oh, like my boyfriend can work a lot harder and like be at the laptop for a lot longer than me, but we both get the same amount of work done, because maybe I'm just in my feminine and things come out a little bit faster, or just, you know what I mean? It's different. The energies are different. And
Yeah, I can
one thing I've
picture
been
that.
really stepping Yeah, like one thing I've been really stepping into, which I would love to share and be an expander for other people potentially, is business is allowed to be easy. Let me say that again. Business is allowed to be easy. Business is allowed to feel magical. Yeah. Business is allowed to feel good. And that's something that, especially as Armenians, we have not ever really given ourselves permission to do, is that things can be easy and feel good and be done on our terms and the way that we want it. And I truly believe if we look at that 1%, or not even the 1%, but just the really cool innovators who are changing the world, they are operating from their truest selves in the way that works best for them. So stop trying to copy everybody else. Tap into, am I masculine? Am I feminine? Is my inner child happy? Expansion is all within. And then you just go, I just booked that person. Or, I just got asked to be on a podcast. I didn't even have to. Like, these things just flow to you because you're in so much alignment. So
Yeah.
that was a really long-winded way of answering your question, but that had to be said.
No, of course. Because everyone has a different approach to their routine and they always want to explain why they do it in a certain way. And for the couple of weeks already that we've been talking with our business ladies here, everyone has shown a different routine. Some of them don't even have one. They just wake up and do whatever feels right that day.
Exactly.
Which is awesome. And so thank you for sharing that. Do you take time to work on your mindset every single day, or is it like a weekly thing? And if so, is it books, or are you leaning more towards podcasts? And if there's anything that you'd recommend everyone out there to do?
Yeah. Mindset is an everyday sort of thing. Self-development, mental health is an everyday thing. I always say the healing doesn't happen overnight. It happens every night. And it doesn't have to be a conscious practice. Like, yes, I have my books, I have my podcasts, I have my courses I could take, my coach to lean on. But oftentimes it merely looks like, I have a potential client call in the next like 30 minutes. So it's like, how do I just get into my vibey, flowy feels? Like, how do I get my mindset right to serve her the best? And what does that look like for me? And that to me is practicing my mindset because it just strengthens it every single day. Or following my intuition, oh, I want to try out this coffee shop today. And then I show up and they're like, oh, you're the 20th person to walk in line. You get a free coffee. And I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks. You know what I mean? Small things like that is me practicing in my mindset. It's so much simpler than we make it out to be. Like, making your bed, if that's something that you've been wanting to do and a habit you've been trying to build, and you go, nope, Sirena is the kind of person who makes her bed in the morning. That is my higher self. And you do it. Yeah, that's working on your mindset. That's as simple as it can be.
Awesome. Is there any books you're reading currently that other people might benefit from?
Ooh, that's a good question. I recommend The Untethered Soul. It's very good. It's very dense, even though it's like the skinniest book. I still haven't even finished it, but it's great. Kind of aligned with like inner child stuff. So I love The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I think my book's over there. I do love that one. Right now I got a couple. I have like I have a fiction book, a nonfiction book, and then this book that all my business friends are recommending called Think and Grow Rich. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it good?
Read the For Women's version.
There's a For Women's version.
There's a For Women's one. Any version of a male book that a woman has rewritten to apply to us, I would always start with that. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, wait, I want to see what the men have to say. And then I'll go back.
That's interesting. I'll have to keep an eye out for that after I read this one.
The difference is, instead of talking about or giving examples of male businesses, it's females in entrepreneurial positions. So either a CEO or innovator, poet, those type of women.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah. I'm positive people can all say, what books they love and whatnot. But yeah, The Untethered Soul is a good one to dip your toes into, and The Alchemist.
Oh, I've heard.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is the quickest read because it's basically like a children's novel, kind of, but it's so stupidly profound. Like, it's so simply profound. You're just like, well, duh, I already knew this. Like, everybody needs to read it. The Alchemist, yeah, everybody needs to read. So start there and then let me know how it goes. Please let me know.
Okay, awesome. So like we'll start kind of wrapping up here because I've taken so much of your time already, and I'm so grateful for all the insights you've given us. So you have a podcast. Your Instagram is for your coaching services?
Yeah, my Instagram is where you can find me being ridiculous and silly and all of the above. All of the above. And serious and very valuable.
Yeah. Do you have other products out there that we could talk about?
No, I mean, it's pretty much just the podcast, which has been on a hiatus right now. But yeah, podcast, my Instagram, and that course is pretty much where you can find me. I like to keep it simple, mainstream.
Awesome. So what's kind of next for you? What's like the next step for you, your business, your coaching services?
For me, I would love, and I am actively working to help as many people as humanly possible this year. I am actively calling in and manifesting whatever opportunity is meant for me to up level into next. And I really do trust in whatever kind of comes up, and I go, oh, that's definitely that thing, like that little e-course that I built. I love building courses. I hope that, by the fall we'll be back on stages and I can start having people in person. I'm really keeping my options as open as possible, but my one-on-one container is my pride and joy. It's my baby. And that's what I am constantly making sure that I am learning new things every day and healing myself as much as possible so that I can just expand people as much as possible in this 4-month container that we work in. So that's pretty much my pride and joy. My podcast is for fun on the side. It'd be cool to expand that and bring on more incredible guests. But again, as much value as I can provide to people in the most accessible ways possible, with closed captioning and audio description and whatnot, I'm all for. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Something big is coming down the pipeline, but I'm chilling. I'm waiting for
it. Waiting for that divine download.
Exactly. Yes, you know it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for coming on here. Was there anything else you wanted to add for today before we close off?
Oh, I'm just really glad to have connected to more Armenians. I love this. I didn't have any Armenian girlfriends growing up. They didn't really like me. So I'm glad that I now have other ones that do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this time you've given us, the insights, the golden nuggets. If you guys got any value from this video, this chat, leave us a comment below. Let us know what was your favorite takeaway. As always, you could reach out to us if you have any questions regarding anything we've spoken about today. Sirena, how can we reach out to you? What's your Instagram handle or your website link?
Yeah, so Instagram is the best way because my website's right in the bio, but it's just at Sirena Abalian. If my Armenian gals are out there listening, they'll be able to type that in easy breezy. But I'm the only one, so you can't not find me.
We'll link it below in the description. You'll find it. I'll even put the link to your free course.
Awesome.
So you can get quick access. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sirena, for coming on here. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to see what's next for you. And to everyone else out there, bye.